Happy for no reason means you have an inner state of peace and well-being that doesn't depend on your circumstances. So
Yes.
stuff happens. People die. You're going to feel grief. Something upsets you. You might feel upset or angry. But behind that, there is this backdrop of peace and well-being that you carry with you wherever you go, so that you're more resilient, you're more creative. The way I look at it is, instead of trying to extract your happiness from your life experiences, which is what most people try to do,
Yes.
is we bring our happiness to our life experiences.
Yes.
It's an entirely different come from.
Peace and riches blessings. I am Michael B. Beckwith, the host of Take Back Your Mind. As you've heard me say for many years, peace and radical blessings. Peace is the dynamic of harmonizing good. That's what peace is. It's a quality all of its own. Peace and blessings. Blessings is a conferring of life, of more life. When someone says bless you, they're saying they're conferring more of the beauty of life upon your soul. So I say peace and radical blessings. Peace and mighty blessings. Peace and blessings. And welcome to Take Back Your Mind, the podcast that is about having agency over our own awareness. The life question of the week comes from Louise. She says, I have a clear vision of what I want my life to look like. A life dedicated to meditation, creative writing, and nature study. But I find myself perpetually stuck in the tool gathering place and feel frozen when it comes to actually putting this life into motion and engaging these practices. I feel as if I am behind a glass wall and can't move into living my life. How can I break through this stuck energy and move into living and being my vision? You said you're in the, thank you for the question, first of all, Louise. You're in the tool gathering place and you can't get out of it. They used to call that paralysis by analysis. You become paralyzed because you keep analyzing and you keep gathering tools, you keep studying, you become paralysis by analysis. I used to say that it's called a spiritual constipation, where you gather so much information, but you don't use it, so you become constipated. This is what you're describing. It's also called inertia. You can't move. This is what you do. And you hold fast to your vision, to the life you want to live, the gifts you want to share, the talents you want to express. You hold fast to the vision, but you do little tiny steps. You don't try to do everything at once. I'm going to go write. I'm going to go meditate. I'm going to do all of these things. No. You just take one thing at a time. And if you take a baby step every single day, then that baby step helps you move from inertia to momentum. And once momentum happens in your life, then you discover that you're able to pick up doing other things in your life, moving from inertia to momentum. Now, everyone is the same. The only thing that separates us is our habits. So if you develop a habit of doing a small step every day, that will become your way of living. You'll create a great degree of momentum, and then you'll discover what is called spontaneous goodness. Your momentum will become the condition for spontaneous goodness to break into your life. And because it has become habitual, the little things, the tiny things, you'll look back and you'll realize that you have done a lot of things that amount to something big. So, why don't you begin in the morning by being grateful and sitting for a couple of moments in meditation? Why don't you continue with just a couple of moments of creative writing in your journal without any judgment on what you're writing? Going out in your backyard. and looking at the trees and being grateful for the flowers and trees. If you don't have a backyard, go to the front yard. If you don't have a backyard or a front yard, look at the sky and see the clouds. Start with something small. Do something every single day until momentum takes over and you discover this spaciousness within you to do more. In your constipation, by taking in so much information that's not being used, will be transmuted and you'll start to digest the information that you've received. It'll become the bone of your bone, the blood of your blood. And you'll find that you've changed. And you know what will happen then? The life that you're holding for yourself will begin to emerge, and it will be better than what you're holding in your imagination. Again, peace and blessings, Louise, and everyone that benefited from your question. Have a bright day. Just a moment, I'll be with my friend Marci Shimoff, and she's going to bring forth happiness for no reason. Blessings. Peace and blessings, everyone. Life is amazing. Life is meant to be good, and life is good because life is alive with itself, teeming with itself, wanting to know itself more and more as each and every one of us. So this particular podcast, Take Back Your Mind, is about having agency over our own awareness, that we can make choices from an expanded awareness, activate our gifts, talents, and capacity to have more life flow through us, and make a mighty difference on the planet. I have with me today Marci Shimoff, #1 New York Times bestselling author, world-renowned transformational leader, teacher, expert on happiness, success, and unconditional love. Her books include runaway bestsellers, Happy for No Reason, Love for No Reason, 6 titles in the phenomenally successful Chicken Soup of the Woman's Soul series. Her books have sold more than 16 million copies worldwide in 33 languages, have topped off all of the major best-selling lists, and have been on the New York Times best-selling list for a total of 121 weeks. She's one of the best-selling female nonfiction authors of all time. She's the host of the national PBS television special called Happy for No Reason, is a featured teacher in The Secret, and is the narrator of the award-winning film Happy. She currently co-leads a worldwide program called Your Year of Miracles with thousands of participants from 72 countries. I've been honored to be a part of that dynamic program. She's inspired millions of people around the world and is dedicated to helping people live more miraculous, empowered, and joy-filled lives. We've known each other for years. She's a colleague. She's a friend. This is Marci Shimoff, and she's not shy about her happiness. Hey, Marci, how you doing?
I'm so great. It's always I'm happy for great reason to get to be here with you, Michael. You are, whenever I'm with you, it's a love fest. So I'm looking forward to the love fest. That's just how you do life.
That's how we do life. And you look so good. I was just commenting earlier, you're bright, you're beautiful, the flowers, the tree of life behind you, Happy for No Reason boogie. Everything is just curated so wonderfully.
Thank you. I love variety.
Yeah. Well, listen, as we begin our conversation, for the 16 people that may not know who you are, would you just kind of give us a little bit of your backstory and,
Sure.
how you became this beautiful being that's spreading light and love and happiness and touching so many beautiful people around the world. I mean, who was Marci before and what happened?
Yeah.
Became this beautiful being that I know.
Well, Michael, I am one of the least likely people on the planet to be speaking and teaching about happiness and miracles. I was born depressed. Mm-hmm. I came out of the womb with existential angst. I had a great family and great circumstances, and I just had this sort of dark cloud around me. I was depressed. I think now, when looking back, I think I had some ancestral trauma.
Yeah.
But my solution as a kid to being depressed was something called sugar. I became a sugar addict as a young kid, and that didn't help. You'd be happy for a minute and then more depressed. By the time I was in high school, I was about 35 pounds overweight.
Wow.
So when I got to be in my 20s, I did what I think a lot of people do. I set goals for myself, and I figured that once I reach these goals, that's it. I'll have it. I'll be happy. And I'm going to share with you. I had 5 goals. I want to just share them with you because I think that you'll be able to relate to some of these. I think a lot of people can relate. I wanted to have a great career, successful career helping people. I wanted to have a wonderful husband or life partner. I wanted fabulous friends, a comfortable home, and the equivalent of Halle Berry's body.
Look out now.
So I worked really hard to get all those ducks in a row, and I got 4 out of the 5. I don't have Halle Berry's body, but I got a healthy body, so that worked. I really, Michael, I think so many people, they're working really, really hard thinking that thing, just that next thing is going to do it. And I had a turning point moment. And my turning point moment was in 1998. I had 3 books in the top 5 on the New York Times bestseller list at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I had just given a speech to 8,000 people. And I had autographed 5,432 books. They were counting. My client had a massage therapist there massaging my hand so I could keep on signing. And on one hand, and I know you know this feeling, on one hand, I felt like an author rock star. Mm-hmm. But I remember after signing that last book, Michael, I went up to my hotel room. The client had gotten me the penthouse suite. I was in Chicago, and I went over to these huge windows overlooking Lake Michigan. And I took in the view, and I turned around and collapsed onto the bed and burst into tears. And I burst into tears because I realized I had what I thought I needed, and I still felt that emptiness in my heart that I had felt my whole life. And I couldn't fool myself into thinking that just that next thing was going to do it, because I'd been there. I knew that it's not going to work. Right. And that's when I dove headfirst into studying happiness. And I interviewed 100 what I call unconditionally happy people. You are one of them, Michael. And I did all the research on happiness, and I started doing what everybody was telling me to do, and it worked. Wow. So that's why I'm here.
Now, it's interesting because many people have come through levels of darkness or some kind of thing they had to overcome, but it seems as though that was their school. It's like they needed to go through that, and you may be one of them that needed to go through that sense of depression, that sense of the dark cloud over you. It was like maybe it may have been ancestral, but you may have set yourself up on a soul level to learn something in order to bring to the race. What do you think about that?
I absolutely believe that. I believe it was my soul contract. Yeah. I believe that my purpose here, when I was 13, I went to see a friend of mine's parents brought me to see a motivational speaker, Zig Ziglar. Remember Zig?
Yeah.
He was about one of the only ones. It was 1971.
Yeah.
For those of you who are doing quick math, you don't have to do it. I'm 65. And so I went and saw Zig, and I knew that's what I was supposed to do. I knew that I was supposed to inspire people. And I went home and told my parents. They weren't very excited about it because they'd never heard of a professional.
How are you going to make money inspiring people?
Totally. My dad was a dentist. They wanted me to be a dental hygienist. But then my mom said, honey, you sure talk enough. You might as well get paid for it. So anyway, I really believe that my life has been about learning what I need to learn about happiness, what I need to learn about living a more miraculous life, what I'm here to learn about love, so that I can tell people from a really real place, hey, this is what I've done and it works. And, I think that, you have the same kind of thing. Your story, which you have so many stories, but your story is just an amazing story. And thank God you went through those dark nights that you went through.
Absolutely. No one really escapes the dark night of the soul.
No.
At some point, whatever, everyone has their different version of it. But it brings you to that point where your identity changes. Your brainwaves change, your identity changes. Everything you've identified with before as who you were changes, and you become essentially an expression of what you're meant to be, not what society tells you you're supposed to be, not what your parents thought you should be, not what the government thinks you should be, but your identity shifts and you come through it and you become yourself.
Yes.
And as you write, for no reason, you're happy. You don't have to have a reason anymore. Now, the book you wrote, Happy for No Reason, where in your development did you write that one?
So about the time I started really recognizing that
Seven
just the next,
steps. It was like 7 steps.
yeah, 7 steps.
Yeah.
I realized the next shiny thing isn't going to do it for me. So I started researching and interviewing people like you and interviewing the scientists and starting to do these things and that I was learning. And I would say I went from about a D in happiness, if you were giving me a grade,
Mm-hmm.
to an A.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm still a work in progress, but it's a solid A. And I thought, man, this isn't going to work just for me. So that's when I started writing this and testing this out on people. One of the first people I tested it out on was my mother.
Mm.
My mom, she was in her 80s at the time, and she had never been happy. She just, and I think she biochemically just didn't have the right biochemistry for happiness, which is one of the 7 ingredients that we can talk about. But I remember I had her start doing the things I was learning, and she became a different person.
At
Like
80
you
years
just
old.
said, she
Yeah.
just moved from that sort of shrunken, contracted ego self into her true soulful self. And it was incredible. At one time, she was 87 and she had to have an emergency surgery, this really long surgery. And we weren't sure she would come through. And when she was done, she woke up. I was standing over her and there were tubes coming out of everywhere. And I said, Mom, how are you doing?
Mm.
She looked up at me with a big smile. She said, honey, I'm happy for no reason. I said, oh, yeah, you got it.
I remember we were at a transformational leadership council. I mean, I just finished speaking and you came running up to me. You were so excited. And you were saying something like, happy for no reason. Says, you covered so much material in that talk. Happy for no reason. Happy for no reason. I didn't understand. You were so excited. She said, I'm writing books on happy for no reason. I'll always remember that look on your face. And I said, what is she talking about? And then, now I look at your career, you're like the happy person. You're the poster child for the miraculous life and happy for no reason. Now, what would you say? Okay, there's 7 steps. Let me just go through that first.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to go through that first.
Well, great. I'd love to. And first, let me just share with you what I mean by happy for no reason.
Yes.
Because I don't mean that you're walking around 24/7 with a grin on your face and
Right.
you're in some la state of denial. Happy for no reason means you have an inner state of peace and well-being that doesn't depend on your circumstances.
Yes.
So stuff happens. People die. You're going to feel grief. Something upsets you. You might feel upset or angry. But behind that, there is this backdrop of peace and well-being that you carry with you wherever you go, so that you're more resilient, you're more creative. The way I look at it is, instead of trying to extract your happiness from your life experiences, which is what most people try to do,
Yes.
is we bring our happiness to our life experiences.
Yes.
It's an entirely different come from.
Yes. You're describing freedom. You're
Totally.
describing spiritual liberation, because as you say, most people are getting their happiness if a circumstance is exactly the way they want it, or a condition or a situation. And if it's not, their happiness disappears. That's what we call pseudo happiness. It's based on external changes or external circumstances. But you're describing freedom to be able to be in that space of happiness regardless of an external circumstances. And as you said, doesn't mean sadness is not going to pass through. Doesn't mean grief is not going to pass through. Doesn't mean disappointment is not going to pass through. But it's in the context of your larger field of happiness and joy. And I think that message is extremely important during this time in human history, where anxiety and worry, anxiousness have become normalized in our society. because conditions are volatile. That message about happiness for no reason is probably more important than any other time in history. And you're definitely bringing it. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, is so much of the way we've been raised and the way that society is sharing with us, it is so externally focused.
Yeah.
And, so it's natural that we think, oh, it's going to come from, I've got to get it out there. But it's such a flimsy place to get your happiness, because I call it happy for good reason.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with having fabulous things or a wonderful partner or whatever. But what happens when that goes away, if you're basing your happiness on it, that's never really going to be what we want. We want lasting. We want the real deal. And I agree with you. It's freedom.
It's absolutely freedom. So what are the seven, what you call them, 7 steps?
7 steps. So when I did the research, I found that the only difference between happy people and everybody else is that they have different habits.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing. I mean, the research shows that we each have a happiness set point.
Yes.
And no matter what happens, good or bad, we're going to return to that unless we change our set point.
Yes.
And the biggest part of the set point we can change is our habits.
Yes.
So I found there are 21 main happiness habits. They fall into these 7 areas. It's hard for people to remember 7 of anything. So I created an analogy. It's called building your inner home for happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So a home has 7 areas. It's got a foundation, 4 corner pillars, a roof, and a garden. And here's how this relates to happiness. Your foundation is taking responsibility for your life.
Yes.
It's showing up in life as a victor rather than a victim.
Mm-hmm.
And we know we're the victim when we're in blame, shame, or complaining.
Yes.
So bottom line, got to start there. Then there's the pillar of the mind, our thoughts. A lot of what you're talking about here, taking back the mind.
Yes.
What is your mind doing to either support your freedom and happiness, or what is it doing to take it away? Then there's the pillar of the heart. I have never met a happy person who had a closed heart. Never. Happy people genuinely are open-hearted. They're kind. They're generous. They're easy to forgive. All of those beautiful qualities of open-heartedness.
Yes.
Then there is the pillar of the body, the biochemistry. Do you have enough endorphins and serotonin and oxytocin and dopamine?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, as I go through these, I highly recommend that everybody think, which am I the weakest in? Because wherever you're the weakest, that's your Achilles heel. So Michael, I'm going to ask you at the end of this, which are you the weakest in? You're going to be my guinea pig here.
Okay.
Then there's the pillar of the soul. And the pillar of the soul is, how connected do you feel to the greater energy of life, which, whatever you call it, God, divine. And by the way, Michael, this was the chapter that I had your story in, was the pillar of the soul, because you are an amazing embodiment of truly living, from the soul. And then there is the roof of your home for happiness. And the roof is your purpose or passion in life. Are you living an inspired life? And then finally, there's the garden. And that's, who do you surround yourself with? Do you have a lot of roses and gardenias, the people who inspire you? Or do you have some weeds, some toxicity or things that bring you down in your garden? Right. So those are the 7 areas. And Michael, I think you're strong probably in all of them, but if you go weak in one of those areas, where would that be most likely for you?
You tell me. I'll tell you. Every area you went through, I'm feel really strong in those areas. But I think that for me, I have even after all these years, I still have like a kind of a critic within me about myself. Mm-hmm. Much better than it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. But it's still there. I have a critic that I can always do more, give more, share more, be more. But I got faced with that the last couple of weeks, and the inner voice just told me to relax. You're doing all right. You're making an impact on the world. You're healthy, and you're happy. So the inner voice told me to calm that, not to pay too much attention to that critic. But that would be the area that I'm kind of growing in. That's my growing edge, I would say.
Thank you for sharing that. You know, I think that it's inspiring. It's inspiring for me to hear that you, who really have spent so much of your life with this, that's where that can still come up occasionally.
Yeah.
And what I found is that's the area that's the hardest for most people, the mind. You know, 80% of the average person's thoughts are negative. We inherited this tendency. It's called the negativity bias from our
I speak
cavemen
about that a
ancestors.
lot.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
we don't want to beat ourselves up for that. You know, it's
absolutely.
like, let's add insult to injury there. And a dear friend of mine, Rick Hansen, who wrote a book called Hardwiring Happiness, he's a neuroscientist. He says our minds are like Velcro for the negative. They stick to us, but they're like Teflon for the positive. The positive just slides off of us. And what I've seen is that happy people reverse that tendency
Yes.
where they, you know, most people, if you get 10 compliments in a day and one criticism, what do you remember at the end of the day?
They
You remember the criticism.
remember the criticism, sure.
And so it's this constant, it's like what you're saying. You learned to, it still shows up. It's an old habit. It still shows up, but you learn not to pay attention to it as much.
Absolutely.
So
I put a little cancel on it.
is that how you do it?
Yes, they cancel. Cancel.
And I think you've also built up enough of the neural pathways in the brain for the positive.
Oh, absolutely.
That's why it's easier to just go cancel and not listen to it as much.
Absolutely. I mean, like you, I'm in joy most of the time. It's just, and for no reason. It's just, and I'm in gratitude gratitude is where I wake up in the morning. I'm just grateful for no reason. I'm just grateful to be alive.
Yeah.
And then in that vibration of gratitude, grace and the miraculous and spontaneous goodness shows up in that gratitude. And gratitude also keeps you humble. You don't take, you don't allow vanity to come in and take personal credit for things. It's just, you just feel, for me, I feel everything is a gift from life. And so I'm just grateful, I'm thankful. And I'm grateful for challenges, because I know the challenge is about to birth a talent, a gift within me that's latent, and the challenge is going to bring it forward. So I think gratitude then leads to a wider dynamic of happiness and intrinsic joy. And then every now and then it feels like, you could have done that better. but that's not my dominant thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just,
And I loved your bringing up gratitude, because when people ask me what's the fast track to happiness, if I had to pick one thing, that's the one thing I would pick is gratitude. And I talk about it as radical gratitude, which is like what you just said. It's gratitude for just life, gratitude for what is easy to be grateful for. It's also gratitude for the future, what's coming.
Yes.
But where it becomes radical is that it's gratitude for what you don't think you want.
Yes.
It's gratitude for the yucky stuff too.
Yes. Yes.
And that's radical gratitude.
Yes. So people are facing a lot of challenges these days.
Yeah.
You know, so what do you say to people to either attain or maintain happiness during the challenge? I know gratitude is one of them.
Yeah.
What else would you give them?
So one of the things, super easy, that is scientifically based, is to work on creating new neural pathways in the brain for the positive. And there's 3 steps that I suggest for this. And the first one is to be on the lookout for the good.
Okay.
I have one of the women that I interviewed in Happy for No Reason pretends that she's the Academy Awards committee. And her job every day is to give out 5 Academy Awards. So she is just looking for where she can give out an Academy Award. She sees a cute little fluffy white dog walking down the street, and she goes, oh, that gets my cutest dog of the day award. Or she sees an act of kindness, and that gets my act of kindness award. So just to, and if you've got kids, play this game with your kids. What are 5 Academy Awards that I can give out today? And just be on the lookout. So that's the first step. And then the second
right there, because what's going on is the mind is starting to develop a habit to look for the good.
Right.
It's a whole nother habitual pattern. Yeah.
Right.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the second step is to savor it. The science tells us that it actually takes 20 seconds for the good to register enough to start creating a new neural pathway.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take anywhere near that long for the negatives because they're already so strongly built in. So that means that you need to take 20 seconds to actually savor what it is you're appreciating. If you've got a sunset, you can't just go, oh, that's a pretty sunset. You got to take it in like you're taking in this.
Savor
it.
Savor.
And that's why if you see the cute dog, you don't just see the dog, you go over to the owner and you go, I give out Academy Awards and your dog gets the cutest dog of the day award. You're focusing on that for 20 seconds.
Love it.
And then the third thing is to go for a 3-to-1 ratio, which means you got 3 positives for every 1 negative. So anytime that critic comes in, you just say, yeah, I hear you. I know you're there. And you refocus on three things that you are appreciating.
Mm-hmm. So this is with anything. So if something negative floats in your mind, you start to look for 3 positives immediately.
That's right.
And so you're living at a 3-to-1.
Yeah.
That's powerful. I love it. Now, you've did all this research.
Yeah.
What was the most exciting thing for you that you discovered in all of this research?
Well, the most exciting thing for me was that idea that we had a happiness set point, and that no matter what happens, we're going to go back to the happiness set point. It explains why people think all I have to do is win the lottery and I'll be happy, right? And we know they do. They win the lottery. They're happier for a couple months, about a year it takes for them to go back to their original happiness set point. And by the way, it's the same of people who have tragedies happen. Within about a year, they return to their original set point. And that scientists found that the set point it's made up of 3 things. It's 10% your circumstances. Mm-hmm. Yet that's what we're all so busy trying to figure out and get right, but it's only 10% of the whole pie. It's 50% our DNA. You're born with it. Mm-hmm. And it's 40% our habits. Mm-hmm. And scientists in the field of epigenetics, like our friend Dr. Bruce Lipton, who wrote The Biology of Belief, they tell us that our genes will change when we change those habits. So that means 90% of our happiness set point, we can change. Hallelujah.
That's right. I think that is so important because people, obviously we're living in a nice time of history where the field of epigenetics has emerged and it's kind of matching the metaphysics and the mysticism of the ages, that whatever genes you're born with, whatever DNA you're born with, as you just said, can change. That's big news for people because people are walking around thinking, well, my auntie, I'm just like my Aunt Sarah, I'll never be able to change.
I'm doomed to this. And that to me was what was so exciting because I thought, okay, I've been depressed my whole life. By then I was in my 40s, I think. Mm-hmm. And it's doomsday here. And then I read that and I thought, okay, it's not. And Michael, I think this is what should be taught in schools. This should be headline news. My God, the one thing that people have wanted from time immemorial is to be happy. And science cracked the happiness code. We know how to do it.
Yes. It's interesting that we don't teach that in school. We don't teach how to be happy. We don't teach just how to be kind anymore. We don't teach kids don't learn how to deal with their emotions properly, and then we expect them to go out into society, get good A's, graduate the top of their class, and then go out and be successful and to be happy. And as you described, you did all of that and weren't happy.
Right.
It's interesting how our society is in certain areas is advanced, but in so many areas lagging behind where we could be as a species.
Absolutely. It's the wisdom that we're lacking. We're lacking wisdom. We have a lot of knowledge. We don't have a lot of wisdom that we are following. It's there, as it's all of the great teachings of history of all time. They all point to exactly this.
Yes.
There's nothing different. It's just now it's time. I think that we're in crisis on the planet so that we have to pay attention to this now.
It's an evolutionary trigger for us.
Yeah.
We both say something very similar. We both say, don't believe everything that you think.
Right.
Break that down for us in your own way.
Yeah. Well, it's just that idea that 80% of our thoughts are negative. And why believe
Wow.
those?
Wow.
Just because you have a thought. And by the way, 95% of our thoughts are the same thoughts that we had yesterday and the day before. Our minds are just habit
Yes.
machines. And we just have listened to lies about ourselves from the
Hmm.
time that we were very young. And as long as we continue to listen to the lies about how we're not good enough, how we're not okay, all of that, we just believe them. I will share a little story. I recently was listening to a woman on TV telling about how she had been trained by a certain former president politician who's
Hmm.
who's in a lot of trouble right now, and how he taught her. He said, "Well, just tell them this," and she said, "Well, it's not true." He said, "It doesn't matter. You tell people things enough times, they'll believe it." And
Definitely his strategy. That's what he
that's
said.
right. But that's what our minds have done. They've hijacked us
Yes.
only because we are believing the lies that we learned when we were very young, the conclusions we came to. They're just not true.
Yeah. One of the things that I teach is that a lie believed acts as our law until neutralized. And
Mm,
this is what you're describing. We believe these lies and they become a part of our very personal law. And we can run really fast and we can work really hard and we can do all these things. But until that lie is neutralized, that's our personal law. We can't
yes.
go beyond the set point of the law that we are expressing by the lie that we've embodied. So yeah,
And
don't.
it's really important, I think, to have people around us, to surround ourselves. I mean,
Yeah.
your amazing agape community, to surround ourselves with people who aren't believing those old lies,
Yes.
who are believing a different truth, because that's how we get supported. We support each other in that. It's a whole
Yeah.
lot easier when you got people around you believing, not believing those lies.
Yeah, and that's one of your seven steps, to
Yes.
surround yourself with people that are, I call them high vibe people, yeah,
Yeah.
possibility thinking people, supportive people, holy companies, what we used to be called in the mystical tradition. Surround yourself with holy company, not religious company necessarily, but
Yes.
holy company. One of the things I say frequently is that authentic spiritual community grants you immunity from the lower frequencies of life. So
Mm.
you end up in a higher vibration, and through osmosis, your set point rises. You
It
know,
it so does. You know, people ask me, well, what do I do around to be around negative people? And the first thing I say is build your own emotional immune system.
right?
If you're around people who have a cold, what do you do to not get the cold? You build your own physical immune system. Same with negative people. Build your own emotional immune system, and it'll be like water off a duck's back. I had the opportunity of a few times of getting to be with His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember one time we were in a small group. There were maybe 20 of us in the room. And there was one guy that was really negative. This was before His Holiness came in. And I'm thinking, oh, how's this going to go over?
Right.
You know? And the Dalai Lama walks in and sits down, and his vibe is so high
Yeah,
that the other guy the negative guy just completely shifted.
yeah.
And you know, the stronger energy wins.
That's right. The high vibe wins. I've been with him a few times myself. I remember we had something in Dharamsala at his home, and we
Mm,
brought together all of these scientists and authors, and everybody was vying. Dalai Lama hadn't come into the room yet.
right.
Everybody was fighting to see who was going to speak to him first. I've got this idea. The ego was running rampant.
Yeah, yeah.
I was so surprised at these people that I knew were acting this way. And so he walks in the room and he picks up an instrument. He starts playing like a child. He starts playing this instrument. He's smiling, and then he sits down. And as soon as he sat down, everybody's vibe changed. They became like little kids. Their ego kind of disappeared, and they became wrapped with attention. It was like
Yes.
it's something powerful. And then another time we were having lunch and he was sitting right across from me, and somebody came and whispered something in his ear, and they told him that one of his disciples had been tortured
Mm.
um, in China and died. And you could see this energy of sadness
Mm.
roll through him. Then he lifted back up and came back to this wide space of gratitude and compassion. It was like he didn't deny the sadness. Sadness, like it
Right.
just came through. He could tell he was sad, and then he bubbled up in a matter of a moment. You
Mm.
know, that as we were talking about earlier, his backdrop was joy and compassion, and but this you could see where the sadness caught him, and then he bubbled back up. It was an amazing thing to watch.
And what's so beautiful about that is to allow the waves, to
Yeah,
let it be, and that it's okay rather than push it away and just be
absolutely.
with it.
I'll tell you a story. The night before, we were Association of Global Thought was putting this event on with him,
Yeah.
and the night before, I had this dream. And in this dream, he had walked in the room, and somebody asked him a question, and he started saying, "Well, the Buddha's treatise on that says X, Y, and Z." And in the dream, I stood up and said, "We don't want to hear that. We don't want to hear what the Buddha's treatise said. We want to know your direct experience." And I woke up sweating. I said, "Oh my God, I'm not gonna, I said, I'm not going to say that to the Dalai Lama, you know." So the next day, the meeting starts just like in my dream. He walks in, we go through the formalities, and people start asking questions. And just like my dream, this person asked this question, and I'm saying, "Oh no." And the Dalai Lama says, "Well, according to the Buddhist treatise, blah, blah, blah." He says, "But I don't want to stop there. I want to tell you my direct awareness of it." And I said, "Phew." and, then, and then he went on to talk about his own direct encounter with the truth. He
Yeah,
didn't start
yeah.
quoting scripture. You know,
Uh,
I'll always remember that, because I was like, "Oh no, I am not going to say that to the Dalai Lama. Don't quote scripture. Tell me about you."
I don't know, Michael. I think you would have done a great job being yourself and represent, and he would have loved that.
Yeah, but I'm glad I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Now, let's segue a little bit with two things. What are some of the myths that people have about why they can't be happy?
Uh,
And then there's also a role that the body plays in it. Yeah.
yeah. So the myths of happiness are I'll be happy when,
Yeah, that's a good one.
and its cousin, more is better. I'll be happy, when I have more. So I'll be happy when this happens or that happens, and then more is better. And
Right.
those are just we've dispelled those. And there are some really great little hacks.
Yeah.
I know you know a bunch of them. But that has really helped me hugely. The simple things that you can do to create enough serotonin, certain herbs that you can take, certain
Yes.
neurotransmitters, certain amino acids. But
Yes.
there's one exercise that I learned from a Qi Tsang master.
Mm-hmm.
Qi Tsang is a version of Qigong. It focuses on the stomach. And his name is Gilles Marin, and
Mm-hmm.
it takes 2 minutes to do. And if you do it a couple times a day for a week, it will totally turn around your serotonin. So if anyone is feeling depressed, if it's clinical, please see a doctor. But if it's just, I'm a little down, try this exercise. It's called a sunning meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And all you do is you go out and in the sun, and I'll tell you what to do if there's no sun where you are. You go out in the sun and you face it with your eyes closed. Really important, close your eyes, face the sun, allow the sun's warmth and light beams to come in through your closed eyelids. Imagine it going into the middle of your head, the pineal gland,
Mm-hmm.
and lighting up the pineal gland.
Mm-hmm.
And then imagine it just going down through your body. 2 minutes of that twice a day will shift your serotonin, which in turn will shift your melatonin.
Mm-hmm.
And your melatonin will help you sleep better.
Mm-hmm.
Better sleep will help you feel happier. So
Hmm.
it's just this cycle of I feel better from the serotonin, I sleep better, I feel better from the sleep. So it's this wonderful cycle that really works. And I just tell people, don't take my word for it. Use your life as an experiment and just try it out a couple times a day, 2 minutes each time for a week and see what happens. Now, if you're not somewhere where there is sunlight,
Hmm.
then just look at nature. So
Mm.
if you have a beautiful
Yes,
tree
yes, yes.
outside or some flowers, nature will also help produce that for you.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful because I kind of do that naturally when I go out in the morning and just face the sun and I breathe. And so basically the serotonin, you're getting vitamin D,
Mm-hmm.
which is which basically balances your mood and uh, basically amplifies your immune system. The serotonin, the melatonin, that's powerful. 2 minutes a day. Everybody you got that? Try that. The sunning meditation,
Mm-hmm.
2 minutes a day. I like that's a beautiful exercise.
And you know what I've found, as I'm sure you have, people, we're busy. We're all
Yeah.
busy. Who's got hours a day to devote to long practices? What we want to do is fit simple practices into our life that become our habits.
Yes.
So it's just, okay, a couple minutes twice a day, no problem. I got that.
Yes. And then that can create a level of momentum that will allow you to extend other practices. You start off with something small, but
Exactly.
you do it really well until it becomes a habit. And then you find that you have spacious enough within yourself to extend your practice in other areas.
Yes. And to that end, if you had to ask me besides gratitude, what's the other thing that's kind of the key? It's meditation. It's
Yes.
connecting to your soul. It's feeling that energy of the of who you are. You're the truth of who you are.
Yeah. There's not one guest that I've had on here that doesn't mention the word meditation.
Yeah.
That's like the fundamental piece that's now if you go back 30 years ago, it was woo-woo. You know what I mean?
I,
Now,
I know. I went to a college in 1970s where
yeah,
everyone meditated,
yeah. Where'd you
and
go
we
to
were the
Maharishi?
huh?
Which one did you go?
I went to Maharishi
Yes, Jose
International
Maharishi.
University.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That
I
was a part of
became
the
it.
curriculum. Yeah,
Yeah, so we met it, but we were definitely the weirdos back then.
yeah. That was weird, man. Uh,
Yeah.
people, I used to say people would rather get caught. I mean, you put a paper bag over your book. People would rather get caught reading porn than a book on meditation or
Right.
some spiritual occult thing.
Right. Right.
What you reading? Meditation. Oh, you're one of those nuts, one of those crazy. I bet you don't bet you only eat vegetables.
That's great. Michael, let me read a little 2 sentences
Go right
out
ahead.
of Happy for No Reason on the pillar of the soul because it's from your story. Your story
Okay.
was amazing, and I just was looking at it before I came on today,
Oh, wow.
and it talks about the reason for meditation is to connect in with presence, with the truth of who we are.
Right.
And this is your last paragraph. It says, "The presence is not going to let me down because I am here representing it. When I surrender to the presence, it always works out. Like each one of us, I've been hired by the universe to be
Mm.
myself."
Yes. And we're never unemployed
Mm-hmm.
because we've been hired by the universe to be who we really are meant to be. Now,
Yeah.
what do you tell people this onslaught of negativity on the media. We talk about we have a bias for negativity, but a lot of it is thrust upon us on a daily basis, and people are caught in the frequency of fear.
Yeah.
Fear, anxiousness about the future. What do you share with people to pull them out of that?
Oh, well, first of all, be aware of what you are taking in.
Yeah.
What you're taking in is the news that you're watching is every bit as impactful on your body as the chocolate ice cream that you're eating, or even more so. So I don't tend to watch the news. I read a few headlines so I know what's going on, but I don't sit and get mesmerized by the news, because what happens is we become addicted to those chemicals that make us feel the cortisol. We're addicted to it. So we sit in front of the news and we go, "Oh my God, I want to hear more. I got to hear more. I got to hear more." Don't go to that addiction, and especially not before you go to sleep.
No, and when you first wake up either.
And when you first wake up, exactly. So it's really important what it is we want to know what's going on in the world, but only to the degree that we can then put our attention on how to contribute to the solutions.
Right. Now, how do you tell people that rooting and going deep for your own happiness is not selfish?
Yeah. Great question. People often think, I'm being selfish. I'm being selfish to be happy. It's the least selfish thing you can do.
Yes.
There is emotional contagion. The research shows that our happiness affects people, at least 5 people out. So your being happier is affecting your neighbors, cousins, sons, school teacher. So it's really what vibration are you contributing to this planet of ours? There's a beautiful Chinese proverb that says, when there is light in the soul, there will be beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, there will be harmony in the house. When there's harmony in the house, there will be order in the nation. And when there's order in the nation, there will be peace in the world. And, my prayer and my wish is that everyone feel the light, know the light in their own souls. And through that we all contribute to peace here on this planet of ours.
The cosmic butterfly effect.
I love that. That's right.
You affect everything with your own vibration, your own frequency, because we're all interconnected. The viewpoint of separation is another lie. We're not separate. We're emanating from one source. So we're affecting everything. This is what you're saying. Yeah.
And Michael, what I've seen about happiness is that there are levels of it. And about 10 years ago, I started waking up every morning and feeling like, oh my God, my life is miraculous.
Yeah.
Just amazing thing. I didn't know what would happen during the day, but magic was happening. The right people were showing up. The cool things were happening. Yeah. And I realized, just like there are ways to become happier, there are ways to live in what I've come to call the miracle zone.
Oh, that was my next question. Break down the miracle zone. What is it? I know, obviously, because I've been a part of your program, so what is the miracle zone?
Yeah, you have been a fabulously brilliant and wonderful part of our program. So the miracles, first, let's define a miracle. Right. A miracle is a surprise and welcome event that can't be explained by science, that's often attributed to divine grace.
Yes.
So we can't create a miracle. What we can do is we can we can create the conditions for miracles to flow in our life.
Yes.
And that's what I call the miracle zone. I'm in that zone, and we all know the feeling. It's when you think about somebody and they call you, or you need $973 to pay something, and a check for $973 and shows up that day. It's just life is in the flow.
Yeah.
And that's thrilling. Athletes talk about it, of course, being in the zone, but we all can live in the zone. And that's where you live, Michael. That's why it's so great to be in your presence. You live in the zone.
Yeah, the miracle zone. Now, how can people get in touch with you? And is there anything else you want to say about this miracle zone and how people can be a part of that?
Sure. I do a year-long program, as you know, called Your Year of Miracles, and we focus on living a miraculous life in each month in a different area. So one month it's about self-love, and one month it's about living your passion, and another month it's about miraculous health. And people can reach me by going to youryearofmiracles.com, or you can also go to happyfornoreason.com for my work on happiness.
Outstanding. Now, one last question, and I think you probably answer this in so many different ways. The title of the podcast is Take Back Your Mind, So what is your go-to to take back your mind when it's gotten caught up and curated by the world?
My go-to is to go to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, the mind is meant to be the servant of the heart, not the other way around. The mind is a wonderful agent of action. But the heart is the guidance. The heart, the soul. The heart is the doorway to the soul, and it's the guidance about what is it that I'm here to do. What is it that opens my heart? If we find follow what opens our hearts, that's the best guidance on the planet. And then our minds can follow that instruction.
Outstanding. But you brought a lot of material, and tell us once again where they can find you. And Marci Shimoff, not shy.
Not shy. That's how I used to.
On fire for happiness.
So I would be delighted to connect with people at happyfornoreason.com or youryearofmiracles.com. And I just want to thank you, Michael, for being a stand on this planet for true happiness, authentic and lasting happiness, and for truly living a miraculous life, because you inspire me always in that.
Thank you so much. Back at you, and your compadres that work with you as well, all friends of mine. And life is good. Any final words? Anything that you just figured, I wish I would have said that.
I love the final words you just went. Life is good.
Life is magnificent.
Life is miraculous and magnificent.
To the extreme.
To the extreme. All right. We can end on that.
We'll end on that one. Peace and blessings, Marci. Thank you for being
Love to you, Michael.
Today. Thank you. God bless you. Obviously, this is our moment for meditation. And if you have been following the Take Back Your Mind podcast, you may be noticing a trend. Almost every single guest that I've had has mentioned the word meditation as a part of their practice. It's fundamental. It is difficult to actually disrupt your present way of thinking without the practice of meditation. Meditation provides the context for you to transcend the content of your mind, so that you can take back your mind from a repository of worry and anxiety, interpretation of past experiences, into an avenue of expanded awareness of that which is real. You can wake up to be your authentic, real self. So as you've heard my guests say, including Marci just a few moments ago, in order to have that kind of happiness that she called it a set point, I've called it a set point too for many years, meditation is key. Meditation is paying undistractable attention to reality. That's capital R reality, not your experience of reality, but that which is real, that which is eternal. Love, beauty, harmony, peace. Those are real qualities that are intrinsic to us as spiritual beings having a human incarnation. Let's stop what we're doing right now. Let's close the outer eyes. Today, let's tap between the space between our eyebrows. Just tap with an intention to wake up and see, not with our eyes, but to see with our expanded awareness the beauty and the love that we're surrounded by. We have our hands now on our lap facing upward as a sign of receptivity. Receptivity is a great tea to drink. Availability is a great tea to drink. The greatest ability is availability. Available to the energy of the source of all creation. Turn within. Allow ourselves to be still. There's no plans for the future right now. There's no hauling the past into present moment. We're right here, right now, with an intention to wake up to our glorious nature. We're aware that the body is breathing. It's breathing in present moment, not future moment, not past moment. The body temple is breathing in present moment, so presently we're available to our intention and the breath. And here we sit. You're aware that the body's breathing. You're aware of the breath. You're aware of your intention. Everything else, you are observing and are becoming aware of it without interference. Sounds, sensations of the body, emotions that may arise, thought forms. All of that is in your field of awareness, and you're just observing it with intention to wake up. this consciousness of total observation, we give thanks that we exist. We give thanks that we are alive, that we are aware. And in this consciousness of thanksgiving, we become the ripe condition for the miraculous to take over our life. We let it be. And so it is. So be it. Slowly open their eyes. And in the here and now, be grateful. The main sponsor of the podcast, that's the Agape International Spiritual Center. How you support the podcast? You support the sponsor, Agape International Spiritual Center, agapelive.com, or go to Agape International's Facebook page. And if you feel inclined, you feel generous, make a donation to Agape and just say, in honor of the podcast, Take Back Your Mind. If you want to support our other sponsor, that is Adapto Zen. That's the creator of my superfood greens. 47 plant-based ingredients. Energy, digestion, and immunity in a scoop. Go to Nutririce.com. Get the bundle, the vitamin D3K2, and the superfood greens. You'll be supporting your body temple, and you'll be assisting and sponsoring this podcast. Have a bright and beautiful day. You deserve it, so you might as well receive it. Peace and blessings. Your time is very valuable, so I want to thank you for lending us your ear and participating in taking back your mind. If you want to submit a question for the question of the week, please submit it to podcast@michaelbeckwith.com. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please submit a review and let us know your thoughts. Stay on top of current episodes by subscribing to the podcast so that you'll receive alerts and not miss one single episode. And feel free to share this podcast with all of your friends and family. And until we meet again, take back your mind, and you will take back your life. Peace and blessings.